Okay. Um, Thanks for joining. Today I wanted to just try and find a few more coins and mark out and explain some of the opposing candle theory again. But this time I've actually got a bit more insight. And I've been digging deep in over the last week, so I'm hoping it makes sense for you guys as well. And yeah, I will admit I cheated on you guys. Unfortunately, I went ahead and I started marking the minute I started finding. I just couldn't stop, and that's actually why I was a little bit late. I got carried away, but I'll explain whatever it is that I did already. So let me just refresh this. I had a look at. I've been watching two specifically. I've been watching Light, and this is one of those usual ones where it's going up and we don't really know what's supporting it and it's very difficult to gain levels on. So we can do an example of how to or what to look for in one of these. And the Saros. And this one also has been presenting a bit of a mix. So you see there you got the daily high and low confusion as well as you got bullish and bearish divergence. So the bullish on the daily, bearish on the 12 hour. So this has been quite an interesting one for me, I must admit. I've been scalping it as I've been going today. And yeah, so I pulled those ones out. I've already marked some of them quite a bit. And I've got BSU. And this one actually looks like it's moved a little bit, to be honest. It moved a tiny bit. Okay. And yeah, while we go, I was actually thinking of pulling another one up. And MLN. Can have a look at. There we go. Let's have a look to see why MLN is bullish divergence, which it should be. Here we go. I already have looked at this one. Oops. There we go. We've got some data. Light, Eva, this seems to be coming up there quite strong. Have a look at that one. And let's see what Eva's doing. It's on any swing detector. So swing hasn't, oh, there it is, yeah, daily. So it actually has. Okie dokie. This one's fairly new. Cool. Let me just turn my phone off. Right, so let's start with this first one here. And something I'm digging more into it and just going through some how can I say, just some deep research everywhere I could find any information about it and just try and get like a general idea of explanations, sometimes it's good just to get varieties of perspective on one idea just to really kind of compound what that idea is about in your mind. So I've been going deep into the opposing candle levels and trying to work out exactly, how do I really apply these? Because it was starting to get a bit messy on my chart. And we are trying to build a opposing candle level indicator. Well, I am actually so I've given Seth quite a bit of logic already, but yeah, we just have to get some more like in-depth concepts about trying to identify what and how it works on a base structure. So with that, obviously, I'm learning a lot more about it as well, and I'm seeing actually more and more beneficial use for it. So yeah, let me explain what I've learned so far. So going on to the high time frame, what the opposing candles do, and of course they do leave like an impression and a residual, and a lot of the time you'll see that price generally responds at that same level, especially with the higher time frame levels. It does, however, so for instance, if we're looking at a weekly opposing here, what the idea would be is that because we're on a weekly time frame now, this price has swept on the weekly. So on the same time frame, the price has swept the weekly, and if the candle closes after this line, which in theory would invalidate this line. So working more towards, okay, when do I know when to remove something, or something is more recent, or something is more usable. So it's obviously just where there is residual liquidity, resting liquidity left behind that hasn't been touched. So in this case, in these areas over here, there's quite a bit of resting liquidity. It would be very similar to fair value gap, except the fair value gap is derived from expansion. So it's about price, more buyers and sellers, more sellers than buyers in a market that has left an imbalance of price. So that would be more about the effect of what a movement may have done, whereas the residual and the opposing levels on the outside, on the tops and the edges, these would be more where you've got your stop losses, your take profits orders, your limit orders. That basically would be the areas of where those. So anything where price reverses obviously generally becomes like a level where you either wait for price to return to before you enter. So it could be based on limit orders. So there's a lot of resting liquidity that is not of imbalance, but could generally just be of interested buyers and sellers. So that's why the opposing candle levels are generally used. So the combination of the fair value gap and the opposing candle levels, although they're very similar in nature. So a fair value gap, for instance, on a weekly, if the price had swept through on a weekly and closed, would then invalidate, means that everything within that price would have been swept already. However, if, for instance, you get a weekly fair value gap and a 15-minute candle basically closes and then retraces and goes back underneath and fails to close. So it fails to close on the daily, fails to close on the 4-hour, 8-hour. That just generally means that there is still resting liquidity left at that position. There's just less, so it'll be called residual. So I hope that makes sense. But I'm going to mark out everything on the charts according to this theory, as well as, of course, just your standard Trendex and your SMC theories. And so far, this one, okay, so pulling it off the EAX, why I pulled it off. Had at the time, obviously it was at the lower part of the chart, which is why I had an interest in it. And I'm actually going to just refresh for Binance as well. When I pulled it out, it looked like on a weekly, it had been, so there's a question here. So weekly opposing, you don't need to go wick to wick. You go to the body. So weekly opposing, yeah. So weekly opposing, you actually go to the body, yeah. The wick is obviously your highs. So generally you can mark out extremely, especially if it's got these large wicks, you mark out to 50%. And those could be areas of liquidity to sweep. So a lot of people use the area of 50% wick. That would be one theory. That's one of the theories that Seth mentions, but the opposing level is on the candle body. Okay. So yeah, what I was mentioning here, if you have a look on the weekly, so the two weekly opposing levels that I found here, and obviously this weekly hasn't closed yet. So it looks like it's been in accumulation at the moment. So I marked out those weekly levels, went on to the lower time frame, and then obviously had a look to see, okay, I've also got on the daily, we're just going to mark out what we can see so far, and then obviously with that we can work to determining which direction the bias would be. Okay, there's a daily fair value gap. And so this was a weekly fair value gap as well. I marked it prior. Actually, let me see if this is a weekly or a daily. I just want to make sure. Yeah, it's a weekly and a daily. Interesting. Okay. So why it's important now for me to actually mark out the time frame is because of that reason. So for instance, if we're having a look at the 4 hour here, and there's a 4 hour fair value gap, and it was created from this expansion where if a 4 hour candle breaks and closes and then retraces, for instance, we would then assume that this fair value gap only has this much liquidity left. So it's good to just keep your chart up to date as and when it's moving, and as its candles have closed, as well as obviously with these opposing candle levels will be great too. With the idea that I've got would automatically remove them, or it would then what I'm hoping is that it can actually just mark it and make it like the opacity a little lighter, just to show that it's still there, but it's residual. Generally means so you can use these as support and resistance levels as well. And that's where obviously it'll either break through with strength or it will grab some liquidity and then reverse, of course, going to the next liquidity batch. So from liquidity to liquidity. It'll help you to determine using the combination of the opposing candle levels on the higher time frame and obviously on the lower time frame for your CISD. So yeah, and the fair value gaps, of course, if you have a look on the high time frame, it actually automatically claims. So, but it's nice to have it on the chart as well. Okay, so this one I had a look at. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So it's the price that currently is underneath the daily and underneath the weekly pivots, although they're wide, right? And the card shows, let me just bring this back into some viewing position. So the card shows that the RSI is on a 27, which means it's pretty low. The weekly buy, so it's below the weekly. So anytime you find price that is below the pivots, in theory, you should be looking for shorts. Anything above the pivot, you should be looking for longs. In this case, it's accumulating. As you can see, the previous high, previous low is quite close to each other. So it is like working towards contraction and looking for new expansion. So whether this will become part of the daily narrow pivots sometime this week, I'm assuming we're going to get quite a bit of movement out of it. But yeah, what we can do is we can prepare just to see if we had to get that strong movement, which way would we go? So you've got your weekly, which is a strong magnet. You've got your previous week low just underneath that weekly as well, which is a very, very strong area of interest. So this is your weekly level here, if you have a look here. So at the moment, you've got the fair value gap that goes right through the 4-hour fair value gap. And I actually marked it. Oh, sorry, it's a little bit too intense there. So I marked it in the space, which is a very like, you can see it's bounced off the bottom of the actual pivot here, but this is the weekly opposing candle level. And it broke through the weekly opposing candle level. Now, obviously the price is retracing. It's retracing to where there's a combination of the weekly opposing level and a 4-hour fair value gap would be now. So my intention to observe, and that's why I've marked it here, is just to show like where I'm actually looking for, just to recognize what the price would do. Good. Recognize what the price would do is to actually watch to see how price, and if we could get a 4-hour raise, for instance, to that position and see if there's a 4-hour failure to displace with a candle opening to the downside, then watching that, looking for a position to actually go for a further movement to the downside. So this would be obviously breaking this whole sequence, price retracing to this point and then closing and then going up, of course, would then be a continuation of this whole accumulation phase. if it had to break above and obviously close after the candle, the weekly, which is very long from now, of course, it still looks like it's leaving these long wicks here. So in my opinion, might close there and then retrace and claim a little bit of this liquidity at the bottom, maybe sweep this previous week low before retracing by the end of the week to this level here. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that movement on this token. Although there is a low RSI on this. And proximities, there isn't any divergences presenting or anything, so it doesn't look like any movements are going to happen, although it was quite low. So just something I was wanting to show you basically on the weekly how these two were looking. That's why I pulled this one specifically as well. Okay, I'm going to leave that one there. This one was very interesting for me as well. I actually traded a few off this one today. I was playing around, just understanding. Okay, let's have a look. So once again, marked out fair value gaps, got my weekly fair value gap, and worked into my chart. I worked the weekly opposing at the bottom. So you basically got your framework. This weekly opposing is quite high. And also, with the opposing levels before, I was marking these ones, although there would be residual. I'm currently actually only working with the higher time frame, the exposed ones on the higher time frame. So if I haven't had it clear, these are generally going to be areas of support and resistance that you can automatically expect to be either a big response, big rejection, or a very strong breakthrough. That means it's going to grab some liquidity area above it. This one had an RSI of 89, so meaning that it was getting to a position where it could get exhausted anytime soon. So I marked these levels out first and then worked on a lower time frame. Marked out my daily fair value gap, got an order block as well above the daily fair value gap. Then you've got that weekly fair value gap. Right in these positions as well, you've got your R3, R2. These are your weekly. Here's your Trinix on. So it's on a high time frame at the moment. So these are your weekly R2 and R3.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You have two yellowy orange lines weekly opposing.
Yeah.
Could you just give a quickie explanation of how you position those lines? Like, how do you decide where they go?
Sure. So if I went into the
Thanks.
weekly time frame over here, and you see where that candle turned. Like here, you've got the candle break. So from a bull to the bear, this candle would be the opposing level. So that's your weekly opposing level, and then the same thing, obviously, with a candle break at the bottom. So this is your opposing level. So these are your two high time frame opposing level candle levels. So this is where like your liquidity, resting liquidity would be on a higher time frame. So a lot in general would be here. These are your institutionals or your money makers, market makers, that type of thing. Does that make sense?
So another way of saying it is that you call it an opposing candle when it's the last candle before a reversal?
Yeah, so opposing candle levels generally become where there's a break of structure from the upside to the downside. So if you're looking at, if you're looking for a boss and a chock, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it would mean, but this is just using it on a high time frame. So using it on a high time frame, of course, just means the same theory, but there's a lot of resting liquidity at these positions.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, is this Martin?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
How
right.
you doing?
How's it, man? I haven't heard you for a while, man. Glad to hear.
I had well, summer is coming to an end here, and I had to get a lot of yard work and maintenance done outside, and I was from sunrise to sunset doing that.
Okay. Well, nice to have you back, man.
Yeah, I'm back.
Um, okay, so
Good to see you again, by the way.
yeah, no, thanks, man. Thanks, man. I actually thought of you the other day. I was like, oh, I haven't heard from him for a while. Anyway, okay, guys. So the opposing weekly levels are going to be your high level of support and resistance, your in between support and resistance. So generally, when you don't have your actual any data from previous candle movement, you've got your normal support and your resistances. This is another way to get your in-between support and resistances. And then on the low time frame, the opposing candles can be your CISD levels. So that's just the combination and usage of them. They're very, very accurate. The more and more I've been working with them, I have started to swear by them because my accuracy is better, my entries are more successful, and they're also I don't have these massive stop losses. So I'm obsessed about trying to get to the bottom of this and actually build in an indicator for our suite as well, just so everyone can use the combination of the tools, and then I'll build it into the EAX as well. So yeah, just this is the early phases of it, but if you had to go and test a little bit as well and put it into your own strategies, you'll see that they do become quite useful. Okay, and so I marked at those two levels, so you can see where it reversed, it bounced off that price, which means obviously there wasn't enough, there was too much support, push price up. Moving towards, so why this token's interesting is because it's almost nearing this weekly opposing level now with a fair value gap, a 4-hour fair value gap. So this is resting liquidity, that's resting liquidity, and price is very, very bullish, very strong at the moment. And you've got another massive weekly fair value gap above it as well. So your weekly resistance 2 and resistance 3 areas are up here, which are very strong areas. Well, it's actually, I think price is definitely going to trace before it does that, but it's nearing a very interesting position at the moment. So I'm going to mark out the daily opposing levels here. So your weekly are obviously are stronger than your daily. Your 4-hour or your daily is stronger than your 4-hour or your 8-hour, and so on. And that's just how it works. It's if you're working on a lower time frame, and you're nearing these positions, for instance, you'll see on the lower time frame there'll be massive rejection and reactions on a lower time frame before anything actually breaks through on these levels. So go ahead and have a look, like even at this one, if you do it anytime you can. And you'll actually see how like the price has responded. We can actually probably check it out, yeah. Let's have a look, yeah. See if you see when price started touching it before it actually went and reversed. So it just starts to like go a bit crazy as it hits, but it goes in a straight line. Generally, if it doesn't break, or it'll go like this and then it'll break strong and then reach for the next support level. So this support level was too strong, obviously, and then it bounced back with support. So yeah, there's this opportunity for a reversal at any point here is obviously what we look for. So this candle level, so it could either be a break, retrace, and failure to break support. So it'll break resistance and then you flip the resistance into support, and then can be continuation to the upside. And then your next levels, you've got your fair value gap here, you've got your previous week high here. So there's a lot of areas of liquidity at the moment. You have a look nearing this position over here. So this, I'm looking for exactly that AMD basically. I'm having a look to see, okay, can I mark out the opposing levels on a granular scale and then wait for that sharp movement and break to the downside. I don't think it's going to be a massive movement to the downside, but there will have to be a pullback. And you can, if you're doing a 10x leverage, you might be able to get a nice 60 or 70%, for instance, and at that point would then retest to see and break this weekly opposing, because there is a lot of liquidity above it. As you can see, all these expansion candles here on the weekly. There's lots of liquidity above it, or if it does break there, it could fall and actually scoop up these supports at the bottoms here as well, and then actually break this support. So I am just looking at it for this It's nearing a position of interest. In fact, I'm actually in a long that I entered in from the opposing, that I'm entering into this position over here. Because in this right now, the price was above the weekly pivot. It was in a position where um, it had rejected off for support and the next opposing candle level. So that's also another nice, cool thing to do, is to trade in between the high time frame opposing candle levels, especially when you get a strong support movement and then a strong movement to the upside. You can always assume that it's going to be stretching and reaching, unless there are other interferences in the way that you can actually see. So if there was a big, strong fair value gap, you might have had a response and movement to the downside, but there was nothing in between that I could pick up. So yeah, this all looked like it was heading here. I took a long, and I'm on 50% already. And I'll break it over there. I'll have a look to see what it does at this. Just before I have a look to see how it does in this response. I'm assuming it's going to break after a candle closure, like a 1 hour or 2 hour, and then it'll make a movement and then to the downside. So have a watch on this one. This one's going to be very interesting. It's still got a bit of movement to go anyway. I mean, that's still 3.69%. You can still get a little bit out of that. I mean, see there, as for instance, it tapped into that 1 hour opposing candle level, was bouncing, then it broke through. And then when it retraced and then turned into a bullish candle, I entered. So that's how, for instance, you use these in between opposing candle levels, the lower time frame opposing candle levels, as it were. And of course, this one's going to be way more of a resistance. You'll see this one will be a very strong resistance. But just above it, you're going to have a previous week high, and you've got a 4 hour fair value gap opponent. So there's a lot of reason for it to price to move to this area. So you're going to get a lot of interest, a lot of people getting involved now to try and scoop up that liquidity for an entry. Anyway, let me not go too far into this one. But yeah, it's entering a really nice spot there. Okay, this one as well, I unfortunately have no information. So this is one of those situations where I think we've had it quite a few times in the group, where we've had it like everyone like picks up a token and they're like, look how it's gone 100%. Looks like it's going to reverse any moment. It's running out of legs. TDIX is saying divergence. And then the thing goes up more. So, I mean, we've all watched it happen so many times. And what I've gathered so far is, from if I was a market maker, I would really look to these tokens, because the one thing is a lot of people are attracted to large movement. Whenever there's a large movement, immediately traders start to think, okay, that means there's a large profit ability to be made. And well, the sad part is that generally most of the time you get knocked out, because you are taking like stabs at it when you think it's going to drop. And, whatever data you have got, it does say that it should drop. But of course, these guys know that you have very limited information. And due to that, they keep ripping the price up and up and up until eventually, it's gotten everyone all burnt and all upset about it, and no one wants to kind of short it anymore, and then it drops. So this could be one of those situations, so just be careful with it. But like everybody, I also get attracted to them as well, and I really do have like this mission to say, man, I've got to be able to catch these things as well. I just want to feel like they can't beat me. If I can't be beaten, I know what they're doing. So it may take some time, because I still get stopped out pretty often. I'm not gonna lie. I do catch it eventually, but it's more of a break-even situation than anything. I don't gain these massive wins. Unfortunately, I'd love to. Let me just grab the token card here so I can show exactly what I can give. Why does it keep going so far? So this one, you've got your support and your resistance levels, which are pretty much all your information that you have at the moment. So when I did find this, it was here at 85, close to resistance 3, monthly resistance 3. It's broken. Sorry, this is your weekly resistance 3. It's broken your monthly resistance 2, 3, daily resistance 3. And it's bounced off a daily pivot. So it's smashed through that resistance 3 daily and it's continuing. This is the last level we have to use as any form of information based on this. And the RSI is only going to be based on the last 14 days. So it's very difficult to kind of gather and use the RSI as an accuracy because the RSI level will drop based on the higher this candle goes, the RSI will automatically just drop itself because it's going to make an average of that candle combined with the rest of them. So it's not as accurate as what you would get from actual data that was, how can I say, just more substantial. But it's what we have to use, so we will use it. This one is not showing any divergence at the moment. So if that was the case, of course, with something like this, you don't want to touch it until it shows a divergence level. The only thing I would do constantly to watch this one, because it's 35%, it is on a massive all-time high, a massive push, and it's on an all-time high now. It still has, it's within, these viable options. So this, for instance, could be this week's coin that ticked everyone off. Like everyone got upset and got knocked out a few times. So please don't let me be the reason why it happens, but rather just use it through as an observation to see, what does it do? Maybe it doesn't. Of course, I'm not sure. This is just one of them. Like I've seen it happen a few times now, and it's just presenting the same way. So it's 35% still. Generally, these ones that actually have no bounds and limits and information can start reaching up to. I mean, the other day, the blessed was like 580 something percent or something silly like that. It was just so crazy. Um, oh, here we go. Light's actually moving quite a bit now. So I've got it on my chart and behind me as well. So I look for 1 hour opposing candles because it's pretty much all we have here. And these become, again, my support and resistance. You obviously have your resistance levels at the moment. These ones would have flipped resistance to support. So if price does drop, you would be looking at these as support at the moment. But whether they actually hold any substance or not, I'm not sure. It's very difficult. It will be very difficult to tell. So I've marked out the opposing candle level. So if you have a look here on the 1 hour, you'll see they're just underneath, which is the exposed side. So the liquidity is always based on the exposed side. So if it was on the top, it means it would have dropped. Then the top one is the exposed side. So your exposed level underneath your actual 1 hour is the only thing that you do have to go with at the moment. This would be a good indication of price breaking to the downside if it had to break, retrace, and then close underneath and then fall to the bottom, then you would know that price was dropping. So that's why we mark these levels out as well. And as obviously time goes by, you've got 39 minutes, for instance, till the next candle closure. Now, if the candle doesn't close and actually retrace, then it's not going to leave an opposing level. It's going to leave this continuation movement to the upside, which doesn't leave you with any levels. The only other levels you can use, of course, are on the lower time frame. They are not as accurate, of course. You can, like, for instance, use this 15-minute. These generally become your CISD levels if you did want to use them. They're not going to be accurate. It's very risky. So it's not how can I say, a safe model to follow if you were looking for something. I would definitely utilize as much, look for divergences. So if you keep an eye on this, there we go. It's a bearish divergence to really just indicate. Once it starts showing divergence, it just means that price is being pushed up for no other reason. and you can expect some form of activity at some point. So whether it's going to be a sweep of this area and a fall to the downside, I'm not quite sure. RSI is at 87, reaching about here, it'll be in its 90s. We can also have a look at, there we go, it's light. Let's just do a refresh. Light. So 80s on the 418.8 and the 4 hour. So it's very high. The price on this looks like it should be entering a position where it should run out of fuel from fumes, but just be careful, like I said. So 87, it's continuation. On the daily, it's showing continuation. I don't know why it's showing that, to be honest. Why is it confused on the daily bias? Just want to check quickly. Maybe just this retracement over there. But yeah, 40%, 40.22% to daily fair value gap. That's obviously what it's left behind. Yeah. So it's got the liquidity lying underneath. It's got a lot. It's got nothing above it to grab except this resistance point, but that resistance is just an idea. It's not actual liquidity to be honest. Let's have a look. Sorry, I just want to check this out since it's there you go, look at that. Starting to turn. Wide, bearish, no levels. So yeah, I would look to seeing, for instance, what it does at this position here. There we go. And mark out 1 hours as they go along. So there's not much more we can do, but this looks like it'll be nearing the position. You can obviously look for the accumulation phase as well. Once it hits a position, it doesn't always just hit and drop. Of course, it'll hit and then start to accumulate. You'll look for that last movement before it drops, and that's obviously a good indication. So in the accumulation phase as well, you can obviously get your 1 hour time frame and you mark your opposing levels, and obviously in accumulation you'll get the manipulation when it drops to the downside and breaks that the opposing level, generally retraces, taps in, and then fails to displace and then moves to the downside would be a good indication for your entry. So that's a good safe way to enter these ones as well. Okay, let's move on. Why are there two of these? Let's see. This one looks more recent. So I've marked out the weekly opposing on this as well. You can see the weekly movement is been quite drastic. So let's have a look on the lower time frame. MLN. I actually think I caught this one down. So this one's showing bullish. RSI 37. Looks like it's hit monthly resistance and flipped it into support. But we'll have a look now. So we haven't got too many high time frame. So daily we don't have because this made a massive movement. Let's have a look at a 4 hour. Just want to lose this. Okay, so let's have a look. Pivot inside pivot underneath previous day low. So it's hit this resistance 2 level and flipped its support. It's scooped up the weekly fair value gap that was left behind. Here you've got a 4 hour. Four-hour opposing candle. This obviously turning into a 4 hour opposing candle level as well. Let's just mark this out. Why is that? It's weekly. So there is 4 hour. Let me just mark it. you've got another one as well over the previous day. Good. All right, so I'm just marking levels and stuff just so I can get an idea of exactly where I should be looking at. Previous day low. Okay, so this one's showing reversal daily on the weekly, the 4 hour and the 1 hour. It's continuation on the daily. Continuation on the daily. Let me just get a fresh one quickly. We'll end. Excuse me for a second. I just want to refresh. Okay, so it is showing bullish, which was good. That's what it was. Monthly R2. Okay, so it's hit monthly R2. This could be a bit of a retracement to over there, claim some and fall to the downside. So it's not a full confirmation of price that is moving bullish, in my opinion. Because the RSI is at 37 as well, it could possibly mean that it could still go a bit lower. There's liquidity here. There's liquidity, it could bounce off this level. You've got your weekly and your 4 hour fair value gap. So there's still quite a bit of liquidity down here. Bullish. Okay, so let's have a look what it's doing on the lower time frame, the 1 hour. Well, I say lower time frame, but still quite high. Here you've got your opposing on your 1 hour. So the 1 hour time frames obviously looked more towards where you can use as a break, of course, would be to the next opposing level. For instance, if it fails and then moves to the upside, you could look for the next opposing level or fair value gap. So price will move to there at least, or to this position over here. So there's a lot of liquidity levels, previous day low, R3, R2, fair value gaps, everything. There's a lot of things happening around here. So I would expect price to do this a little bit in these areas just to claim some of this liquidity before it actually makes a move either to the downside. When was this? On the 19th? And there's little liquidity at the top here. There's a fair value gap. Yeah, there's more liquidity in the below. So to watch this one, yeah, it's 1 hour. You've got 1 hour fair value gaps. To watch this one, I would, of course, I'll be very wary of this one. I'd want to see it break out of these grand zones. Either break out of this in the 4 hour to the downside for a confirmation towards the downside, or I would want to see it break and flip out of this area here. That would be my movement. Is that an opposing towards the weekly? Okay, yeah, but it looks like right in the middle here, still low. So this one's a tricky one. You would need higher confirmations to see what it does past these positions. If it actually fails to displace or it breaks and then flips resistance into support. Anyway, I'll leave that one there. I just came up because it was at a very low position at the time on the charts. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, another one that's could shoot for the stars. Okay, but this one doesn't have, it hasn't reached too many high levels. It has bounced off a daily. So yeah, this one's still in early phases, but it does indicate that it was wide, showing bearish divergence on the daily. So I don't think this will run away too much like the other one is. It's so light. Same deal here. Let's have a look. We can always just no weekly one, I'm assuming. No, it'll just be there. Daily, 4 hour. So you got a 1 hour here. We can do there. Which would be this would be a good indication, if it breaks this, because it's on the previous week high as well. But to watch how, as well, to get a very, very sharp entry, to watch how price breaks from the upside to the downside, when you're looking for a short, is a very powerful method, the AMD. So if you look at how price is doing this, it's very like jagged. And moving like slowly, prices gradually, going up to the upside. When you get this massive movement and break to the downside, and it's broken over, say, two of these areas, and broke both these forms of resistance, and then fell to the downside, then manipulation moves happened. I would wait then for a close of a close CISD, for instance, to catch it to the downside. Let's see what movement you've got here. In 1 day, 37%, so it's quite a good move. These things can move quite a bit. Yeah, just sit. I haven't got too much to work with on this, unfortunately. Just on, a lot of this, I like to just keep an eye on the charts itself and just see what changes. Keep on throwing the card on there. There's a lot of other information that helps. Keep it there. All right, I actually wanted to see what happened here. So this one made a bit of a retracement. Interesting. Let's see where it actually stops in terms of support. So it's looking like your teacup. Here's the handle. And it's right in the middle as well. So there's a lot of liquidity up here as well. So this, for instance, could be a nice pullback. Let's have a look to see if we can find another 1 hour. Yeah. So it actually broke and fell to the downside. If you're having a look here, it's bouncing off on a support level. So that 1 hour candle close is actually on the pivot, as well as the 1 hour opposing level as well. So it's bounce, bit of support. Let's see if it actually can break. If it breaks, then you're looking to the next region to see if it breaks that level. And then once you get that, you can catch a long to the upside to that previous week high, these zones that are high liquidity. And then when you're there, you can obviously just wait for it. Nice reversal to the downside. But I love to actually watch how the price like bounces off these areas. And then when it breaks through with conviction. And then you can see like it uses as support. And then, it broke through with conviction, even to a point where it broke straight down to the next 1 hour opposing level. And then you can see it's used to the support. Again, I just watch this forever. So interesting. So these levels are very, very useful. If you can really understand, like, say, for instance, this was tapped. Once it was broken, it actually became like it lost a bit of strength, because now this isn't as strong as what it was before. For instance, when it was tapping in there, so it was actually taking some of the orders to some of the orders. When it broke through, it obviously had more buyers than sellers. And then again, it sold off and broke through this. So this is now invalidated that line. So, but I'm still looking for it to go over there. Let me have a look at DBR. Let's do it. You eat. Let's have a look in the weekly first. We go this one. Okay, so I'm just going to mark out what I can see so long, just anything close in relation. So I like to mark whatever's closest around the price. And then you can obviously just expect some form of movement. So this this weekly opposing level goes right through monthly resistance 3, which is a very good indication of like area of interest. So to watch when price ever gets there. And I would use this level reversal. So swing point on the weekly. Okay. And what else do we want to use in between? These are your daily levels. So let's set your daily level over here. Must say, like, if I can pull this indicator off soon, it's going to be such a game changer. It's going to be such a useful tool. It's going to save a lot of time, although I really enjoy the marking, I must say. So this one is off a weekly narrow, if I'm not mistaken. Did I see the narrows there? Yeah. So this one obviously reacted off a weekly narrow. Go to daily level, weekly level, weekly level. Okay. So this one still looks like it's in a bearish downtrend. Let me see if a DBR. I don't know if you pulled it out of here at all. That is previous quarterly high. What the level that I marked out? DBM. Just see if I can find it on Binance. Okay, the first one. Okay, interesting. This level here. Okay, nice. Right. So I just want to see if I can get any other confirmation from if I've any luck. Oh, by the way, I have tasked the dev to do a search aspect for tokens for any token. So you'll be able to get all the information from anything that you search that might not be on this graph as well. So I don't know when it's going to come, but yeah, it has been requested for commission besides the yearly open. Okay, let's go back here. Oh, I see. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Yeah, so that's a very, very high level, of course. Yeah. Let's look. So dailies are there, weekly. You're on your previous day, previous week low, previous day, previous week. Let's see what your 10%. So this one obviously is looking to expand quite a bit more as well. So one thing I've noticed is on these expansions, or these narrows, whenever you get, especially a weekly narrow, you definitely, I very, very rarely see where it doesn't at least break your daily resistance level 3. whenever I've seen them. So if it, for instance, just started moved a day ago, um, swept this, I would still expect this to have a lot of movement before it runs out. So this is a very, very little movement for narrow expansions, in my opinion. Um, so I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but if you see this, generally I expect these levels to be um, not as strong. Also, here you've got like all these support levels are quite close. All these narrow levels are quite, these resistance levels are quite far apart from each other, except here. So this would be very, very high interest me. Anything that started indicating bullish movement. We can have a look on GDIX. Sorry, why is it done that? It's changed? No, it does. Let's have a look on your weekly. No. So, so origin still at full. Split it up the daily. Yeah, I still see here's your two daily levels, your daily opposing candle levels here. Now they're quite far. It's closer to this, all of this here at the moment. I'd watch to see what it does in sweeps here. If not, you've got to watch to see if it can actually break this with force. So if it breaks this with force, retraces, then you're looking for it movement to the upside. However, this could just be a bit of retracement and could still be moving to the downside. These would be your indication levels. So it's bounced off support here and rejected. Five minutes. A bit of an overbought. Yeah, so it's a very tricky position here. I wouldn't do anything too prematurely with this unless I knew more. Just give me 1 second if I can take this off. Just want to mark out some 1 hours here and see if there's any relevant information that I can find. So it's broken a 1 hour CISD there. Which is the bottom of your pivot as well. So it broke your 1 hour. Seems like it's flipped resistance into support. I would actually also wait to see how it responds out of these pivots as well. And this 1 hour level, I'd try and find another 1 hour level. I just want to nurture the price to see exactly what it's doing. It does have a fair value gap here. So this is obviously due to the expansion. And this one is the daily fair value gap. Let's just mark this one out as well so we can. Daily, let's just do that. So you got your daily fair value gap below, price broke through there. You see there now it's turned support. The question here will be to see if it does, for instance, break, retrace, bounce, fail to displace, and then you'll be looking for movement up to the downside. But obviously then you've got another support system here that you would have to observe. There's a lot of support and resistance in between here. Here's another level before it actually hits any of these. Do you have a fair value gap? But the expansion is looking to go. So I would you constantly just watch the price to see what it does on these levels. If it closes beyond, then you're looking for confirmation to the downside. But then how far would be the next question, because you have got these levels that get used as stop loss and take profits and so on. There's another fair value gap that it's claiming as well. And that's on the 30 minutes. There's a lot happening in between here in the middle. So generally trading in the middle is a very difficult because it's there's so much liquidity that it needs to grab. And it's a very difficult one to determine which way it's going to go at any one time. So you can never leave like these very little stop losses. This is just how I've observed. And it's also why I like to catch things when it's around these areas. For trade from the outside in, once it's gotten exhausted and there's very little reason for it to continue, further. And there's more liquidity hanging, either above it or below it when you want to enter. Then it makes sense for me to enter. So this one's a tricky one because it would probably go both ways or a little bit. I'm not 100% sure. So I can't give you, I can just mark out and show you what I would do, for instance. Like now I'm watching the price behave on here, as you can see, on that opposing candle level. See, it's rejecting with that opposing level here. We can also use the 3-minute. The 3-minute's pretty accurate as well, I must say. But it's actually very interesting how this opposing level is such a respected level. So the 1 hour you do get a lot of respect from, must say. 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, and so on. You generally see on these time frames, you can actually get to see like your entry. Once it rejects, for instance, and it doesn't break through, you can get a entry for a long on the lower time frame and then wait for obviously the next opposing candle level. So that's why I use them as well. Is there any other token that you maybe want to have a look at? Can I have a look at sign maybe? So there's a narrow pivot. Yeah.
There's something I'd like you to ask the developer to do.
Yeah.
Back in the EAX,
Uh-huh.
you have your little image there that you took of the text, that pop-up text. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way to copy the text. You have to take an image, right? A
Yeah. Yeah.
screenshot. I'd really like to be able to copy the text.
Yeah. No, that is actually on the pinboard.
Oh, good.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it's one of the things because it's what I trade with as well. But because I can do this already, I had like or order priority. And to be able to search for a token, because some people are just trading a specific token, they don't want to jump around and trade whatever's hot in the market at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
So which which would in that instance would be great to actually have that search task. And let me have a look to see what EAX is bringing out in terms of criteria about what I am trading. So I pretty much we get to select like one, depending on the month. Like, okay, let's choose one. Which one do we want to do? And so we
Mm.
selected the search for now. But I have put this on, so I've got about 7 or 8 different queries that we've got quotes on and what we want on them. But that is one of them now.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool, no worries. Yeah, what was I doing with this one? Sign. Let's have a look. This one's just melted out. Daily thing we missed. Reverse them completely.
On that little image you pasted, there's the next fair value gap, right? Can you show,
This one.
can you actually draw the fair value gap that it's talking about? And like it's supposed to be at 0.0527. Yeah. So where is that?
Oh, you mean this?
Yeah.
0.0527, and that is a daily fair value gap.
because I've been
Right.
trying to match those up and I'm not always successful.
Is it? See, so what I've noticed is the time zone. It could be a time zone thing. Um, and obviously one day here is different to one day there, for instance. So there's a daily. But I mean that would have been claimed already.
With 0.0527 is like right off the chart price. Well, no, I mean, it's way up there.
Wait, let's have a look. 0.05. 0.05. Here. 27. I mean, this is a fair value gap here on a daily. So this is all current at the moment.
So the 0.0527 is marked
Goes
by the
up here.
middle.
So I think what they've done, it's obviously claimed some of it because of this. When I pulled it out now. So it obviously claimed some of the fair value gap as it goes. So
Or
it means
does the number mean the midline of the fair value gap? I mean, you
27.
just moved it. So if you move it, if you
No,
move the
no, there's
bottom down, sorry.
I see. Yeah. Well, let's see where that fair value gap would have been. Would have been there, wouldn't it? Over there. Unless it was moved up.
So the zero line is 0.528. Is that it? No, well, you're
Wait, hold on a second there. 5262. Yeah, so it's around there, yeah. So it'll be to the middle, you're right. No, now it's moved
okay.
up.
I was just trying to understand what the boundaries
I think it
are.
does say 50% as well. Yes, to 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the 0.74% is what does that mean?
It's 0.74%. So distance like that. So the
From where to
distance that
where
the
though?
price, so the current price, whenever you take this, would be the distance to the middle of it.
Okay,
So
so the current price is
yeah, the current
0.48
price to the
something.
middle of that, for instance,
Okay.
would be what they're meaning. Yeah.
All
But
right.
of course, that's changing rapidly. I mean, it'll
Yeah, I
be different
understand.
now. Yeah. But yeah, that's what it's about.
Okay.
Um, and what's happening with this one? Yeah, this one's just moved quickly. Yeah. We caught it was on 88 already at the time, I think. But some of these just move so quickly. Look at how fast that was. That's a 5 minute candle. That gave no one chance. 28%. Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll just let go. Okay. Anyway, guys, I am gonna wrap it up. I don't know whether you guys want me to share this list with you or not. I mean, after doing it like this, I'm quite sure, a lot of you have already marked it on your charts and so on. If you do want to, just let me know in the chats here, and then I can post it. Otherwise, I mean, I don't want to be keep posting it and it's, just making a mess in the group, for instance. They do look quite messy when I do it. So if you need it, I'll put it on. But if not, yeah, obviously just take from it what you can. I don't know if you get my markings, to be honest. Yeah,
Amanda, can you go on this Saros? Can you go back to the weekly time frame on it, please? I just want to have one quick question on it. You were
sure.
talking about the opposing level. So you see now on the order block there on the middle, the upper side
The
on the so maybe yeah, so the left, the candle in the middle, and then the red candle on the far left on that zone where you're looking at. Will you also consider that as a opposing level, or is it just on the top side?
Yeah, so this is a thing. Because this candle is closed, and this would have been the
Yeah,
opposing level
yeah,
here. So the
yeah. So
idea is the idea is that level will still hold some form of residual. So you can actually see where the price got to. Let's just mark it actually. it still held some residual. Actually, let me just, sorry, which line is which here? It's the only thing about these I need to sort out. I'll mark it here and you can actually see. So they become weaker, but they still have residuals. So they like before I mentioned last time, they still got that scar um effect. So it still kind of has an effect. Where was the level that I marked now? Am I? Oh no, sorry. I went into the wrong chart here. My gosh. There we go. Let me just turn off some of these other things here because it's confusing a minute. Okay. So here, this would be that second level, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So this is that second level, in fact, where prices responded a lot. So it does leave residual. So for instance, the price will go through there, but at that obviously at that point, it would have some form of reaction when it went through, but a lot of that, because it's been closed after, so weekly has closed, it could just be an indication where price will break through and just retrace to that point and then continue to the upside. But it doesn't seem to have as much effect in terms of resistance or support. So it loses a lot of its authority, if you will. I don't know if that helps with what you were asking.
Yeah. Just because I usually use the other one, but once something break above, I don't know whether I should still consider them that or not.
Well, yeah. So the theory, and like I said, the theory that I've worked into, and this is based on everywhere, not just sets. I've been researching everybody's like top guys, gurus, everything, and from the general concept and understanding that I have, like, some prefer to use, other variants of it, but I just want to try and keep it as simple as possible and just say, look, only use this for this, keep it easy, just so it doesn't become messy. Is that once you get actual same time frame candle close after an opposing level, that automatically gets washed away. So and if, for instance, you've only got a 4 hour that closes and then retraces, and then on that weekly, for instance, you've only got a wick, the it's been tapped into. It may have been weakened a little, but it's still prominent. So it's got very, very strong residual, if that helps. So if you have a 15-minute candle close and then a retracement on a 4 hour. So in theory, you could actually just minus, ideally, if we made an awesome indicator, it would be, 4 hours minus 15 minutes, and then if it tapped again, minus another 15 minutes. And then we could, in theory, like reduce the opacity. But yeah, it's just getting too complicated for the logic, unfortunately. But that's how my mind sees it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Cool, man. Okay, let's see. Got another question here. Stigma G, coordination to environments. Yeah. Positive structure, planning control. Okay.
You mentioned the word scarring.
Okay.
That the previous action leaves scars. The official scientific term for that is stigmergy.
Do you also get this word of the day email? I get one every day.
It's it explains the behavior of ants, for example.
No, this one definitely does, yeah. But it's simpler just to say, you know what, probably if you've got a lot more of your opposing levels that are there and are available to use, then it's pointless trying to include the other ones. But if you've got very little left and nothing that is of recent data that you can use, then I would go ahead and I would start marking using those ones.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it does leave a scar, it does leave that trace element, like a history. It's almost like a groove in the ground.
Or the trail of scent that ants leave when they're searching for food or they've found the food. They change.
Yeah,
Other
exactly.
ants change their behavior when they smell the trail of an ant that has found food, right?
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's call all the little traders ants. We're all going up to the honeypot. Okay. All right, cool. All right, guys. Hope it was useful. I'll put the recording up anyway.
Yeah, it was really
And
great. I really appreciate it.
yeah, man, all
Great
good,
job.
all good. Nice to chat to you again. It's lovely to have you. And yeah, hopefully you're going to be more engaged. It's been quiet. Anyway, cool, guys. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And let me know if you have any questions. Of course, I can just respond whenever I do see it or I have a moment. Otherwise, enjoy your day. Cheers.